Welcome to Witchy Shit by Design, the podcast where we call out old patterns, dismantle the conditioning of a patriarchal society, and reclaim the power that was never meant to be given away. I'm your host, Michaela Stone, behavior analyst, human design strategist, lifelong nomad, and professional life untangler. Here, the conversation is spicy, guided by a no-bullshit, wise woman perspective that says what needs to be said. This podcast is for those who are done living under invisible rules that keep them running in ever smaller circles, and who are ready to design a life that actually feels like their own. Through solo episodes and conversations with guests who are magical by practice, magical by nature, or a powerful blend of both, we explore the many pathways to personal sovereignty. If you're ready for truth, transformation, and a little witchy wisdom along the way, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Let's dive into the witchy shit by design. Welcome to Witchy Shit by Design. I am here with Lya Christiansen, and you've met her before if you paid attention to the podcast. And if you didn't, why didn't you? Let me know, and we can still hook you up with that. But I have 23 speakers. It was supposed to be 21. We got a couple of bonuses in there. But Lya's contribution is amazing, and you definitely want to listen to it. So if you haven't heard that yet, hit me up, and we'll get you squared away with that. So my email, if you want to find me and ask about the summit or anything about the podcast, is Michaela@gaffenstone.com. Meanwhile, hi Lya, and thank you for coming and talking with me again. I love having conversations with you.
I love having conversations with you, Michaela. It's actually really refreshing to be able to have these conversations that a lot of people are just swiping under the rug and not really paying attention to. So,
my favorite kind of conversation. And we had a very brief chat before hitting record because we both said, you know what, let's have a look at religion and how that infiltrates everything. And honestly, even if you're not raised in a church or a particular religion, you can't help but be affected by it. It's everywhere. And it's becoming more and more obvious that it's everywhere. And this is, I think, a problem. I think it's problematic. I think it's not helpful at all. It's another control mechanism. But we can look at my thoughts on that later. But what have you got to bring to the table on that, Lya?
well, I would honestly say to start with, the biggest thing is in change, any kind of change, the biggest thing to start with, or the biggest step, is awareness. So be aware of what's going on. Actually, really take a moment to sit back and actually look at what's going on. And you take a lot of, when you're under fear and you're working so hard to be accepted into the tribe. I mean, we have that on small levels and we have them on large levels. I think the biggest thing is just to be aware of what's actually going on. And does it actually work for you? Or does it keep you minimized? Does it keep you small? Does it keep you doing things that aren't good for your system? That's probably the biggest thing I would say right off the get-go. And that would probably be the biggest thing I would say in these conversations. Isn't about telling people what to do. My experience with religion overall, not good. And, whether that is the case with a lot of people, it's actually pulling back and looking at it and inspecting my experiences is what really made me go, hold on, this system is not serving me. It's serving the system. It's keeping the system alive. It's not keeping me going. And, maybe that's, and I'm not going to, there's a lot of individuals that do better in those settings. If that's the case, great, wonderful.
So I'm wondering about that actually. The people who do better in that system are probably the ones who are in charge of some aspect of perpetuating that system. Because I don't honestly think that anybody who is living according to somebody else's rule book and you can absolutely put Bible in there. If you're living according to that rule book and someone else's interpretation of it, then you are under someone's thumb. You are living your life according to their restrictions and their allowances and so on and so forth. And it doesn't have anything to do with you at all. It doesn't have anything to do with what's good for your life, what you came here to do. No, you're just part of a bigger machine. And if you believe that that's true, that you are actually part of a bigger machine, okay, then you probably feel at home there. I would argue it's still not going to do you any good. It's still not going to benefit you. And feeling comfortable is sometimes a bit of a cop out, right? It's just like, oh, this will do. I don't think I'll look for anything else. I can relate to this. It's familiar. And so you get, comfortable in your rut, basically. But it's dangerous to question, right? It's dangerous to say, I'm not sure you guys are telling me straight. I'm not sure that this is really how it's supposed to be. Ooh, heresy. Ooh, bad. Excommunicated. Boot you out. I actually did. I was in the UK at the time, so I was doing A levels, and I did A level in religion, and I got kicked out of class. I can't tell you how many times. Why? Not because I was throwing desks around or anything, but because I kept asking questions. And I was driving the teacher nuts. She didn't have answers for me. But they were not bad questions. She just didn't have answers other than the rote response. So I would argue that's not much of a system.
Well, I would say right there in what you just said is that when you question in a system like that, you question the individuals that don't question that they have a problem with your questions. But if you're, in front of somebody that is open to questions and is questioning themselves, then your questions aren't going to bother them. So again, where in the programming was that laid down? Don't question. This is the way it is. Like going through the system. This came through, the priest or the head of whatever you want to call it. They communicated with God, and this is the truth. And I think when you look at it, the biggest thing is to dissect what is the truth. There's truths. I think if we look at the different layers of truth, there is the absolute truth. Does any of us know what the absolute truth is? No. I think we all have little pieces of the absolute truth. And then we have subjective, objective truths that are, depends on where you are. When you look at certain, commandments, for example, the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. But what if you're put in a position that is the only option you have? Like, I mean, how do you reconcile with that? And then, yet, I take that even further. Why are we living in why is that even perpetuated in any way, shape, or form that you would have to do something like that? Because even in religion, you turn around, there's a lot of the stories, standing up and going, you know, um, in different writings that they fought in God's name, or God supported them in whatever fight. So it's just, to me, I'm sitting there going, I'm not sure I really like that.
It doesn't
Because
make sense. It doesn't.
no,
It absolutely doesn't make sense. If you look at the wars around the world, they are nearly all, in fact, I would go as far as to say all, on some level to do with religion. It is you guys versus us guys, and us and them, and there's a division based on your religious practices. Well, what an utterly bizarre thing to do. And yet it's been happening throughout history. It's been happening forever. And yet your first commandment is thou shalt not kill. And everybody's saying, God's on my side. It's like, I don't know, man. Really? Do you think so? God's saying, yeah, you go kill more people. And at the same time, we have this commandment not to. Like, who is that commandment for? If wars are fought in God's name, then who is the commandment for? And you can look at all of these. Like, I would even go to, honor thy father and mother, or however it's phrased, right?
Okay, cool. What if they are terrible people?
Right.
What if what if they were neglectful, abusive, awful, maybe they dumped you as a baby, like whatever it is. So the commandment, honor your mother and father, um why again, it's like, why is that considered a given and there isn't something like that for, hey, be a decent parent to your kids? It's, hmm, the priorities are there. And there's no thou shalt not rape, right? There is a coveting your neighbor's wife, but again, what about the child? This seems to be a
Oh,
big
there.
issue currently, right? Like that's not in the commandments. I think there's a lot of flawed concepts before you get very far at all. And the absolute truth, I would say that is a concept. I don't know that it's actually in existence. As you said, we have parts of it. I don't think there's a real, like, yo, here's the absolute truth. Let's tap into it. Yeah, knock yourself out. Tell me if you find it, right? Anybody listening, if you found the absolute truth and you can explain it to me, don't give me the whole, well, you have to believe. No. Give me something I can, hang a coat on. Give me something I can work with, and I'll listen to you. Tell me what you got.
Well, I one of the things with that, as you're saying that, one of the things that comes to mind when and I think this is something I struggled with for years, is you have these commandments, and really, if we actually stopped and really thought about it, there is actually only one that we want. And I had heard the reference of this put in one way that just struck me as well, because what's the one, love. Love, that's it. Like that, because when you love, you don't rape, you don't abuse, you don't impose power over another individual. You don't, like, I mean, if love is your focus, you don't have the capacity. If you're in love, you don't have the capacity to do that. Again, that's from my perspective. And then it was interesting because there was, somebody had said about with, Jesus and judgment, and everybody's scared of judgment. And if they hit the requirements, you got to do this in church and this in church and this, and then you'll be judged against what you did. And I don't agree with that. I think, if anything, it's with your heart, and you're not being judged. You're going to feel the impact of the lack of love. But even if you turned around, somebody had said the one day, and I'm still percolating on that. It's like, Jesus says all will be judged, but they will be judged about whether they love themselves or not. So, really, when you take a look at that, I'm sitting and percolating with that and going, well, that makes more sense to me than anything else. Because if you love yourself, you don't allow these things either. And if you love yourself enough, you're going to know what it's like, and you are who you are out in the world. You're not going to be doing these things. Pretty simple once we get all this other stuff out of the way.
I want to jump on that for a sec because you just brought up something really significant, and I love this. If you love yourself enough, and yet, what are we taught from the very beginning, from the very get go, is it's not about you, it's about everybody else. What can you do for others? And you're actually encouraged not to love yourself because you have to put everything on the other people, give, give, give. And there's nothing about looking after you, right? And the meek shall inherit the earth is often used against you. Like, hey, be more humble. Hey, don't say nice things about yourself. Don't look after you. So isn't that bizarre that the religions that man has created actually teach you not to do the one thing that would solve the problems, which
Right.
is
And
love,
and
right?
and that would, right?
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think
my
a lot.
version of that is I like to tell people, when sometimes I'm on a podcast and the host will say, if you could eradicate one thing from the world, what would it be? Great question. And I'm not going to say, world hunger or any of the usual things because you want to get to the root cause. And to me, the root cause is two sides of the same coin, which is shame and blame. If you are blaming someone else, then you can convince yourself very easily that doing bad things to them is justified, right?
Yes.
It doesn't matter how heinous I behave, I can do this because they are bad people. I'm blaming them for something. If you accept shame, which is somebody blaming you, and you accept that, you are disempowered from taking action because you're too busy feeling guilty about stuff that someone else has put on you. The other thing about blaming others is you are absolutely disempowering yourself by saying, I got nothing here that I can do. I'm a victim. It was done to me. I have no control, etc., etc. And so you will wallow in your hole for as long as you continue to behave like a victim. So this blame shame, it causes all the problems that we have. If you're not blaming people, and you're not feeling shame and reacting from this dark place of shame, we don't have these wars. We don't have need for them. We don't have hunger because we'll be feeding each other. You just don't have those things happening if you get rid of shame and blame.
Right. And think it's kind of going to keep circling back as far as this goes, is that when you have that focus on the self-love, on self, um, you present that out into the world. And you're right, we're not taught that. But if you take a look at a lot, what I started to see, actually, I'm going to kind of shift. What I started to see is a lot of the messages have been flipped, and we're using um, language in a way that, because that is, you speak it, you are creating a vibrational frequency. That vibrational frequency is met in the world. You kind of, this is something that I've gone through. Oh, the universe is against me, what have I done wrong? Until you realize that the universe meets you where you are. That's
Hmm.
it. All that is the universe meets you where you are. It took me a lot of years to do that, because you got to get out of the distortion. So we've got to stop labeling what isn't, things to what it isn't. For example, somebody, smacking their kid. I'm doing this because I love you. No, you're not. Do not put love on that. Do not label it love, because it isn't. It is a human response that, you may have well intentions or whatever, but that is not it. So
I would say that person has unexamined intentions, is what they have. And the reason I laugh, not because hitting kids is funny, but because it's so absurd that you hurt the very little being that relies on you for survival, and then you tell them, I'm doing it because I love you. Now, how fucked up is that? Like, how how are you supposed to pass that out and make sense of it as a kid, right? Like, the people I rely on for my life are hurting me, and they tell me that this is a good thing because they love me. Now, what they're not doing, as they're hurting you because you did or didn't do something appropriately, they're not teaching you what they want you to see. They're not teaching you what is correct to put in its place. You have no idea. And then they get mad at you when you don't learn the lesson. So, actually, the only lesson you learn as a kid when you're hit is it's okay to hurt people when you're angry. And I'm not worthy of anything better than pain. And those are the lessons that you're teaching your kid. And I don't give a rat's ass how many times you tell your kid you love them. No, you don't. In that moment, that is not what you are imparting to that child. You are giving them fear. You are teaching them to lie, because they're not going to tell you the truth next time if they're going to get in trouble. And they're going to be hella sneaky, because they're going to try and do the same thing again. They didn't learn any different yet. They're going to do the same thing again, but they know not to get caught. So hitting your kid is one of the the most frustrating things I face as somebody who works with parenting.
mhm.
It's like, and I don't want people to feel in blame or shame on the subject. I just want them to not do it.
So that's interesting because when you do take a look at it, I mean, we do what we've been taught. And when I look back at how I did a lot of the parenting, and I mean, I was raised in the religion and it's in society. I mean, back in that day, society is kids were seen, not heard. Put them in their place. Adults. Somebody older than you knows more than you. All of those kind of things. But really what it comes down to, if I go back and reflect on all the things that I did, they've actually reflected the lack of self-love that I had. Because if, it's because, you're not lovable unless you got somebody doing things correct in your way. Now, and I'm going to segue a little bit. I found it really interesting with my ex-husband when we were married. The one time he come through the door and he's, rah, 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 rah. And I mean, I had a bad day. I had a bad day that day too. And yet, when people come through the door, hi, how are you doing? Even though I didn't feel that way. Why? Because I want the other person to feel, which is a double-edged sword as far as, you want to make sure serve other people. So that's a double-edged sword. But in this situation, he comes in and he's, and I thought, you know what, like, I don't have it today. I looked at him and I said, so you're having a bad day? And he goes, yeah. I said, okay, so if you have a bad day like this at the office and your boss is around, would you show this version to your boss? Well, no. I said, okay, so you tell me that you love me the most in the world. Like I love you, yet I'm the one that gets this. I don't understand. That makes no sense to me. So why? We have these hierarchies. So you just brought that point up in the fact that, isn't it interesting how those that are the closest to us, it's almost like we have this permission, unwritten permission or written, wherever that is, to be able to treat people that way. We didn't learn how to communicate. I didn't. I mean, most of us didn't learn to communicate and go, you know what? I'm having a bad day. I just need a moment to take care of me. But no, you have to go do the song and dance and try to make sure everybody else is okay when you're not okay. So it's like, I just need a moment. And really the same situation with the ex-husband. If he could come through the door and goes, you know what, I'm having a bad day. I need to go off and just take a moment because I'm not the one that should, well, I'm so comfortable with you. That's not comfort, in my opinion. That is still perpetuating this, what have I done? I'm not lovable enough. And like all of these different messages that are coming through. So I find it really interesting. We have to turn around and label things for what they actually are.
Oh, hell yes. And the thing of, well, I feel safe with you. I feel comfortable with you. I could let my hair down with you. All of that
I don't feel
sounds
safe with you in the moment. So where's
right.
this going to wash out?
All of that sounds, it's good. It's language that sounds like, hey, this is a compliment that I'm treating you like shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it's the same messed up message that we give kids when we hit them when they're little. It's
Yep.
it's exactly the same message, just different stage of life. And what do we do when kids are growing up? Hopefully, this is changing. I don't know though. I'm a little skeptical. But a boy pulls girl's hair. Oh, it's because he likes you. Could we totally not normalize that hurting a girl shows that you like her? No wonder we have so much violence against women when this is one of the lessons that are learned. And teachers in schools, I have to say, I want to call them out right away because a number of times there will be a boy girl interaction where he's like pulling on her shirt or something or trying to grab a boob, like he's grab her ass, something like that. And when she reacts and gets mad, she's told she's overreacting. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't mean it. He's just showing you he likes you. Bullshit. That
Yep.
is where the rape culture is cultivated. And the more that teachers normalize that and just brush over the boys' side of things and tell the girl that she needs to not react so much, and the normalizing of, hey, you'd look so much prettier if you smiled. Like, I'd feel so much better if I shoved my middle finger right in your face right now. So, neither of us are going to be happy, maybe. Or, hey, watch this. Boom, I'm happy. We normalize all these things that when you're going through life, it's very hard to recognize in the moment when you've had it around you all the time that this is normal. And I think we're starting to recognize now when a guy says, hey, you're really hot, let me tap your ass or whatever. Women aren't supposed to react strongly to that. Well, I'd like to normalize carrying a baseball bat, and using the damn thing. Like, oh, you feel you can touch me? I feel my bat can touch you, whack. And will that solve a problem? I don't know. It might. The lesson might get through.
Well, and I think too, to take a moment.
There's a lot,
Seriously,
right?
it is a lot, but take a moment, everybody, anybody, take a moment and really become an observer. Like, seriously, pull, that's hard to do, pull way out of your dialogue and what you've been programmed and raised in, and it takes a lot, but pull back and start listening to music and watching movies, and you are going to see where a lot of this is very, even in this day, there still is so much of what you just talked about is just common. And I mean, yeah, it is. How do you become a whole person? Listen to some of those music. I'm nothing without you. You make me whole, and all of these different things. That's getting into whatever goes into your brain is going to be put somewhere. You're going to be doing something with it. So I think, if anything, if we go back and when you look at religion, one of the things, for example, with religion now, I was in it, trying to figure it out, pulling myself out, pushing against it. Now I'm sitting in a spot where I'm going to pull the threads of value out of the religion, because it does have some really good threads in there and different things that we've heard. But there's also in ancient writings and, masters that have walked the world or whatever, there is the one which really, 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 I think, stop and sit with it. As above, so below. Now, as I say that, point to your brain, to your head, to your mental thinking. As above, so below. Your body is going to follow that lead, whatever that is. So if you have rage in your head, you're going to present rage in your body in one way, shape, or form. Which, when you have these angry, family members or neighbors down the road, what's going on in your thinking. But and it's the same in religion. You go into schools, you go into any institute, and they're giving you information. Really inspect it all, challenge it all. This is my perspective and my experience in challenge it, because if you're not careful, there's a lot of this sly flipping of language and turning, where if you're not careful, you start thinking that way, you start acting that way. And it really comes back to, like, in my opinion, at this point, love yourself, because when you love yourself, you don't have a lot of these things coming in. You're not going, well, I love myself. I think of what's her name, the song Flowers. I can't think of Miley Cyrus. I've
Okay.
listened to that song, and
Oh,
it's
yes, yes, yes.
I can love myself better than you can. I'm
And
going,
notice,
"Yay, thank you for a song like that."
and notice how upset people get about Miley Cyrus, right?
Very
She
upset.
She is polarizing, and yet she's doing the thing that people love to say we should all do, which is be authentic, show up as you, be yourself. And I think people mean it right up until the moment you say something that challenges them. And then they
Yes.
don't like that anymore. And they get a little testy about it. And, I've had pushback, for example, for coming out of the broom closet and talking about being a witch. and I get a whole lot of pushback on that, and I don't like the word witch. Like I'm supposed to do something about someone telling me that. But I find it fascinating. Like, first of all, a really great question is, what are you basing your information on? What do you think a witch is? And where did you get that from? And I tell you, more often than not, what I discover when I really probe that question with the person, if they'll stick around long enough, is their education came from Disney. Well,
Mm.
okay, I'm sorry, my friend, but I'm not doing anything about how I show up because you don't like it based on Disney. Like, you got to go deal with that thing. But the unexamined things that we accept as truth are the biggest problems in our lives. This is where we build the insecure adult from, is the things we accepted as kids because you don't know not to. And then you assume that these things are true about you. And then you build yourself based on that. You become who you are based on those stories. And that's where my work actually comes in, is to work with someone to say, okay, let's find out, where did that story arrive and where is it in your body, and like who told it to you. Not to do a blame, but to basically send it back to them and just say, okay, that's your story, you can have it back now, and I don't need that anymore. And we kind of get rid of it and move on and rebuild the version of the you that you can self-love, because it's awfully hard to love yourself if you believe all the stuff you've been told. And if you've taken it on board and not examined it, it's a concept, right? It's something that people tell you, you need to love yourself. And the listener's like, uh-huh, okay. I don't have a roadmap for that. Like, what does that look like?
Well, and that actually is it. Like, what does that mean? That's like when I say it, I mean, pretty simple, love yourself. But what does that mean? What does that look like? That
It's
is,
simple. It's not
oh,
easy.
it's simple, but it's not. I mean, really. And that actually, I think if you look at it, um, I think of it with the stuff that I do with functional movement, part of that's one of the angles that I work with. And when I say to people, when the complexity of your body is moving correctly, it's really simple. Movement is really simple.
Right.
So if you take a look at it, if you understand the complexity of your life in your layers, in your experiences, and in your programming, in your settings, and all of those kind of things, if you look at that complexity, to get back to the point of focus, for example, in mine is going to be love yourself. Loving yourself is really easy once you can go through all that. It's the hard part, is to dive into the complexity of being a human, dealing with all the layers of what it means. Because I mean, when you take a look at how, as an individual that has been raised within a society that is, if you don't believe what they believe, they have all God-given rights to kill you. I mean, how do
Mhm.
you side of that? I mean, so you're in a very complex situation, and how do you love yourself? And in so many ways, like, stop and really, when you're doing things, does it do you feel like you love yourself for what you're doing? I mean, I look back at all the things, parenting, for example. There's so many things. It's like I I don't love myself for what I did. So when you stop and think about it, that's the complexity. So why did I do what I did? I was programmed, society, and all of these different things. So once I strip through that, that's going to help bring back. That's just one of multiple examples. So to really look at that and and see it from that, again, that's my perspective.
The unexamined life is a life lost, or at
Yeah.
least a life missed, right? And that, I think, is so important to get that message across, that you might not like it, you might feel uncomfortable, and you know what, newsflash, if those things are coming up for you, it is essential that you go there and question. And in the world of witchcraft, it's called shadow work. I think it's also used in Jungian psychology, and funnily enough, the two do overlap. So, shadow work is looking at those parts of you that you would rather keep hidden, looking at those stories that you have about yourself that you try and ignore, the skeletons in the closet. Literally open the door, bring them out, dust them off, and have tea with them, because you need to learn what's going on here, because that part is ruling your life precisely because you're not looking at it, precisely because you're not doing the work. And it's not about suffering. It's about learning, and self-love is in there. It's in the shadow part.
Which is interesting when you talk about that with suffering, because that's another it's like a badge of honor kind of thing. That's again, that's part of the community. Oh, you're never given more than you can handle, so your
Right.
suffering is, those kind of things. But then
Uh-huh.
when I sit back and I go, extracting myself out of all that to sit there and go, well, if I'm in this self-loathing state, the universe is going to meet me where I am.
Can
So
you
what
imagine?
am I going to suffer?
Can you imagine what is the agenda of the person who tells you it is noble to suffer? It's a sign that God loves you. Again, it's this thing of you're being hurt. That means good things, and it basically gets the perpetuator of your pain off the hook, right? And it's just, I'm going to call bullshit on that all day long. This is how we have people in power who are doing utterly despicable, inhuman things. And we have people who are at the top of religious chains, all of the religions, pick one, and they are doing unspeakable, despicable things. And they get away with it because they use this whole thing of, well, if God loved you more, you wouldn't have that, or you don't get more than you can handle, so you can handle everything I'm going to throw at you. And there's all sorts of excuses for appalling behavior on the part of the people in power. And that's what happens, whether it's religion, whether it's society at large. It's a common theme.
Okay, and one of the things with that, you know what, like, as far as who's at the center of turning the wheel, but at the same time, this is where really looking at everything going on and saying, how are you, whether you're aware of it or not, how are you contributing to keeping the energy going? Because you are.
Oh, yeah, you have to buy into it.
When you're just participating in it. So it is to turn around and go, what is your part in that hierarchy that's been, kind of filtered down? So that is part of it, to turn around and say, yeah, they're driving a lot of it. But it's interesting when you talk about, when you say call bullshit on it, as far as that. Yay, yes, because the suffering, and it just shows how strong you are. So now come on in and use your strength, and we're going to help you, with the strength, instead of, okay, you're vibrating at a low. You don't think much of yourself. You're not loving yourself, and it's being projected out into the world. So that's a pretty simple solution. We don't need to be going through this. It's almost like it's yes, and then whips you right back into it.
Well,
Like,
the thing is,
again, you
if, if
need.
you can't if you can't see the worthiness of yourself, if you can't see that you deserve so much better than pain and suffering, then you won't receive it. Even if it's
Exactly.
right in front of you, you won't receive it. It's like having the wrong key for the lock in the door. It doesn't matter how hard you try, you got the wrong damn key.
Yep.
Or you've got the wrong door, but either way, these things aren't going to go together. And that's typically, I think that's a pretty good example of how it works when you're there in the victimhood, in the, oh, this is my lot in life, and I can't do anything about it, and what to do, this keeps happening to me. And again, it's that language of it happens to me, it's done to me, and it's not through me or from me, right? It's all happening to me. And while you're in that space, yeah, you're not getting the right key. You're not going to open the door and move forward because you can't. You're not ready to accept it. And by accept it, I don't mean you got to accept somebody else's word for anything. I just mean you got to be able to receive the good stuff that is just waiting for you to see it. If you
Right.
can't see it, you can't get it.
Right. And one of the things that I think about here, I mean, there's pivotal moments. It's kind of like I said with the song there from Miley Cyrus. It's like, okay, cool. Those are impactful times that kind of, okay, why am I being hit? Or why does this, like, what does this mean for me? But one of them was that Eat, Pray, Love. And there was a moment in the movie where she was in the back of the room. It was in India. And her thought when she looked up was, God is in me as me. And as soon as I heard that, I went, yes. So love, like really they in the commandments, love thy God, right? Love thy neighbor as thyself. So it just again comes back to love. And if you understand that, but a lot of in the what do you mean? You're not God. I was
No.
made in God's image, and that means I have God capabilities. Well, what does that mean? Well, again, that's a whole we could have rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole because
Oh, and I do.
what are you talking about when you talk about the gods even because you got mythical gods and then the God, but what God are you looking at?
Well, they're
And
all mythical.
to look at it to say for me was to turn around and go, well, the God I want to see, the God I want to see isn't one that requires me to walk into a building because if God is all seeing, I'm in nature doing something, God is seeing me. So, like I mean, it could play this around and around and around in my head. Um,
Mhm.
that's it's pretty again simple. My job, that's what I've started to shift is my job is to love myself. What does that look like? That to me now is what my job is.
And boy, that shifts your decision making because you're making your decisions based on a whole new approach when you decide from self love rather than self effacement or self loathing or lack of worthiness, etc., etc. Put the title there because everybody's got one. Lack of self esteem, yada yada. You learned all these things as a kid. The trick now as an adult is not to wallow in it, but to learn that you don't have to be there. You can unlearn it. You can put that aside now and develop. You said self love. I'm going to say self trust. That's my
Same
big thing is self trust, where you don't have to ask somebody else for approval. You don't have to double check. Is this okay? Should I be doing that? Do people like this? What's everybody else doing? It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. That's for them to do. Our problem comes in when we try and follow suit. And, leaping to business for a minute, for example, women in business, it has taken us centuries to get to a place to get back to a place where we could be in business, right? Women used to be before men decided that that was too threatening. But women coming back into the top of companies and what have you, CEO status, that kind of thing, what do they do but try and step into the male paradigm, the male approach of it's a very linear energy of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you're going to walk in this straight line and it's logical and your progression is, niche down one person, one topic, one direction. That is very, very masculine energy. And there's nothing wrong with it if you happen to have a lot of masculine energy and that's natural for you. But we women decide things much more emotionally, much more broadly. We see a bigger picture, and we are not here to see things in a linear, one directional fashion. We're here to see all the things and to approach life very differently. And when you put those two together, it's complementary. It's not men suck and they're doing it wrong. No, they're doing it in a masculine way. The problem comes in when we try and do that too. But
Mhm.
it's not there for us. So where else are we doing that to ourselves, where we're judging the worth of a woman based on a man, right? Whether that's literally based on who she keeps company with, or whether it's based on, well, if a man did it, it would look like this, and a woman. So if a man is, let's say, fired up and yelling and like, rah, grr, energy, right? For a man, he is passionate.
Yeah.
He is a go-getter. A woman doing exactly the same thing has anger management issues,
Yes.
and she's overexcited or she's over emotional. It's exactly the same behavior. So why can we not see it for what it is, rather than whether the person doing it's wearing a dress, right? Like it,
And I mean, when you're saying that, I keep coming back to what helped me on so many levels to, like, for example, what definition are you going by versus, like, even in religion, sin, but actually what do those words actually mean? Where did they originate from? What are their origins? And how are we you got to go back and you got to dig into what's going on there. And I think, again, that's that complexity. But I'm going to kind of jump back when you talk about, love yourself and all that. We have all these other things. Here's, for me, in my mind, my reasoning, my body is to turn around and go, I tried all that. It didn't work. So why would I keep doing that?
the
I
definition of
tried it.
insanity.
It worked. It would have worked by now. It doesn't work. So therefore, you need to do something else. And that's one of the bigger questions is this actually working? Because if it isn't, you got to ask yourself why. So what's really going on? Which means now you got to move out into the complexity. It means you got to go into the shadows. You got to go into what's going on and inspect it. Because a lot of, when I look at a lot of the stuff, I still have the quick religion programmed habits that come up. I still have to go, whoa, hold on. That was programmed. Why am I still doing that? Well, guess what? That's part of it. But you have to, until that's the thing. I'm not going to get pulled back. I tried it. I've been there. It don't work. So therefore, my job is to stay aware and focused. And when it pops up, is to actually take a closer look and say, well, wait, I tried that, 10,000 times. It's still probably not going to work. So why would I go back there? It is really having to have these kind of conversations. At least that's the way I've done it, in the fact that
Mhm.
that's what keeps redirecting me back into what's going on. And you talk about, trust as far as that goes. I really trust what I don't want. I trust that that doesn't work because I've seen it. What am I going to put my trust in? I think it's really trying to maneuver around. So what does self-love look like? That's bring that question back. Come back to that. For myself. That is my intention, because loathing myself, hating myself, shaming myself, all of those things didn't work. I've been there, done that. They
Mhm.
don't.
And the thing is, it never works. And another manifestation of it, just in case the listener's not recognizing themselves yet, another manifestation of it is wishing you could be like X person. And whether it's looks, money, status, your perception of their lifestyle. And let me just point out right now that whatever you perceive their lifestyle to be, it is not that. That is just what you imagine fondly that they are existing in. So it doesn't exist beyond your imagination, honestly. But when you're looking at somebody else and saying, oh, I wish I was like them, well, if there's a quality that you like, you can always adopt it. You can always develop that quality. So, for example, if you like the way somebody speaks in a very forthright manner and calls bullshit on things, and you don't typically do that, you can learn it. I
Mm.
haven't always done it. I learned it. And I got battled along the way, with people telling me, oh, you should soften how you speak. Oh, no, you shouldn't say that. That's too direct. And the more people pushed back, the more I honed in on the skill of saying what I mean what I say, and I don't prevaricate. Nobody is going to leave this conversation wondering, what did she mean? It's like, oh, no, dude, you know exactly what I'm telling you. And that's something I worked on. And so if you see a quality in somebody else that you like, cool, work on it, develop it. You can have it as well, but it's not like I want my life to be their life, because no, you probably don't. You really probably don't. And it says that you're not valuing yourself enough. It says that you're not looking at your body. Like for women, we often want to look like some other woman, right? Well, what's wrong with the body you've got? It's kind of looking after you. You're living in it. Why would you diss it in favor of what somebody else looks like? And you don't know what they're going through. The number of times I've come across fitness professionals, for example, I've been in the world of fitness professionals, really big time. I was in it a lot, had my own gym, etc., etc. And the number of fitness professionals that were battling serious illnesses, heart surgery, cancer, all kinds of things, and they put on a smile and their body looks good, so you think they have everything just because the package looks good, but underneath everything's falling apart. Do you really want that? No. So why don't you look at yourself and see what you've got that you can appreciate, and start appreciating things about yourself that you can build on. Where are your gifts? Where are your talents? And I can tell you now, human design is a great place to go if you really don't know, because I can show you where your gifts are and where they've been covered up. Absolutely, human design does that.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons I do it, is because it shows you what's right about you. And that's a great place to start to learn self-love. I mean, all of us, the people I talk to, are typically here offering a path to others to sort of say, you could walk this path if you want. Why don't you come and see if you like it? Why don't you come and see if the things I'm doing would work for you? But there's no like, oh, you have to do it this way or you're doing it wrong. Your approach to how you're going to help people isn't the same as mine, but we're definitely going in the same direction, for example.
Right. And one of the things that pops into my mind, and I tell it to myself several times for many years, is it's that be different, just like everybody else.
Right.
You be different, but just like everybody else. That is
Mhm.
that is really, in a nutshell, what society and the
Oh,
institute
yeah.
worlds
Be,
are.
be
They're
authentic.
you be different, but just like this,
Be
just like
authentic, but
just like
agree with me.
and that's where you have to, because I see that when it first hit me the first time thinking that way, and I kind of went, that is right. That's that comparison, versus regardless, like what do you have? Who are you? What are your qualities? And we usually, what is very natural for ourselves, they seem insignificant to ourselves because it's so easy to do. And you've got other people going like, how do you do that? And we do it
Yeah.
to other people, like, how, like you said, I want to be like that. Well, it's a skill, but the thing is, what we've learned to do, how we've learned to do it, and our natural, if we're aligned, so human design, for that example, if you're wired a certain way, be that way.
Yeah. And learning what that way is an excellent first step, because we have lost ourselves in all the stories that everybody else puts on us. And I was going to say women especially, but no, honestly, I think men are completely lost as well in the stories that they've been told about how they need to show up. And, I often think, what about the guy that doesn't want to behave like that? What about the guy that doesn't want to be the he-man provider that does the high stress job and brings home the bacon, etc., etc.? What if that is a nightmare for this guy? Does that automatically make him less than? because he doesn't want to fit into that. So as a society, we definitely do this, be authentic, but you have to fit into this category and
Yep.
believe these things and say those things. But hey, be feisty with it. And it's just, wow, it's exhausting. If you try and do this stuff, this is why you're tired. This is why you're just drained all the time, because you are leaking energy like a freaking colander. It's just blot everywhere as you're trying to tap into somebody else's version of you and live that life that's not natural. You can't do it. It just doesn't work. And even if you can, hum the tune for a while, it's painful and it doesn't last. You fall apart. And you fall apart not because there's something wrong with you and you're weak, but because you've been holding somebody else's shit for way too long and you got to step into your own stuff now. You got to do your own thing without necessarily having
It,
everybody else
it,
agree.
right. And it begs to, question that, and to be aware, really. I think the biggest thing is being aware that the transition, um it's kind of almost that you're gonna get feel worse before you feel better. So years ago I used to smoke, and when I quit smoking, it's like you start feeling worse than you did when you smoked. It's like, what is going on here? And then you start feeling better, then you go up above it. That's actually, when you've been living your life outside of yourself, serving everybody else, when you start really deciding to make that, and I mean, for me, it was out of, I just couldn't do it anymore. Like it was enough. I could not do it anymore. My system just refused, which is a good thing. Like at first you think, what am I doing wrong? You're not, your system
Exactly.
is over. So I think really being aware that what's going to happen is when you go into this, it is going to feel bad for a while, because I've tried it all, the shame and all of those from before. But when I started diving into it, it felt really bad. And there were moments I would think, I'm never getting out of this shithole. I'm never getting out of this dark night of the soul, because you hear of it done that way. But it, the other saying is, the way out is through. The way out is the processing of it, and that's what our systems need to do. Your body needs to process the accumulation of all this crap, because all this stuff has been accumulated in your body. So part of it is getting that. So I kind of wish somebody would have told me a lot of this before, where I would have went, okay, I'm going to feel bad. You can get some guardrails and you can have some awareness and go, okay, it's going to get really bad for a bit. But I know that what's happening on the other side, because it is, if you shift that point of focus, when you start turning that around. And it's hard because you're going to have a lot of people turn around, oh, you're being pretty selfish. It's like,
Yeah,
I've been
middle
trying
finger all
not
the way.
to push for
So,
so many years, and the trade-off isn't worth it. It's not worth it.
what I would like to offer for the listener is the trick, if you want to call it a trick, I think it's certainly a help, is when you learn to give your ego a seat. And literally, I like to physically have a seat next to me and just like take a seat there, chew some gum. You got nothing to do for a while. And then you look at the things you're working on objectively. And how to do that basically means you're not going to make it mean anything. It's just information. And as
Mm.
you learn this new information, you can decide how to work with it. But if you spend time making it mean things about you, like, oh, this means I'm a terrible person. Oh, this means I failed. This means you start all that, you're still in the mud. And until you give it a seat and just say, ego, you're wonderful, you're great, you're part of me, take a seat for a while. I got work to do. And, be as objective as possible, and then you can get over heavy ground a lot lighter than if you drag your ego with you. So
Yeah,
that's my parting comment, because we're already at an hour.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to kind of wrap up with what you'd like people to know and also where they can find you for more conversation.
Um, it is, I think the biggest thing is we want to simplify it. But in order to simplify it, you've got to inspect the complexity. And now when I say complexity, complexity could be the complexity of who you are by design versus the complexity of your program, complexity of your experiences, complexity of your state of being. There can be different things that can affect the way you think that might not be out of it. There's so many different things to bring the simplicity back to who you are, because really that's where it is happening, because you cannot be anybody else but you anyways. And I think of when you talked about the fitness world, I originally started it very much in the fitness world and ended up here. And I remember a woman bodybuilder, and this was back in the 90s, the right in that time, the mid 90s. And she won a lot of competitions, but she had this thing: my thighs are huge, and I can't do these competitions. And she said, she decided, I've got bigger thighs than most women. I'm going to make them the best frog legs. And she would win competitions after competitions because she chose to make that one so-called not good enough feature. She decided to make it the best that she could. And that's what a lot of it is, who are you? That's the big thing. Who are you? And you've got to go through and get to know yourself. I think that's the biggest thing, is getting to know yourself. And one of the things that I learned is that when I was working outside of myself and serving somebody else above myself, I didn't like myself. It
Right?
wasn't
What's
that
the
there was
light?
something wrong with me per se. It was that I was not operating from my system and the way things were for me and what was important to me. So I had to inspect. I don't like who I am in this situation and this with this person, with this circumstance. So it was really a lot of inspection. So it's very simple and complex. And in complexity, you find simplicity. And in my perspective, simplicity is the goal, because when you get to the simplicity of who you are, you can be a very diverse, complex individual based on you, not on anybody else. That's a really rich life to have right there. And where can you find me? Lya.solutions. It's LYA.solutions, S on the end. And you can find offerings. There's free gift on there, and to do any bookings with me, because I work from the physical perspective, but I also look at it as the body never lies, which is telling what's going on: mental, emotional, physical. This is bringing you on all layers back together. The body has its own intelligence that is going to speak very loudly, and we're all feeling it, and it has something to say, and I'm here to hear it.
Beautiful. Lya, thank you so much for your contribution today. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I knew I would. We've covered a lot of ground, I think, and I would love for the listeners to let either or both of us know if you have any thoughts, comments, questions. Again, Michaela at gaffinstone.com. Real easy to find me, and I answer all the emails myself. So, I don't have a team member looking at them. I'm very much interactive. I don't farm it out anywhere. That's more transactional, and I'm not here for that. Um, so yeah, and Lya will probably be back at another point because we have so many conversations to have, and she's on 2 summits so far as well. And those episodes will at some point air on the podcast too. So you will be hearing more from Lya. And let us know what you think. Share this episode with a friend if you think they'd get some value from it. And, subscribe. That would be great. And then you'll always get the episodes. This episode's actually going to drop tomorrow. So there you go. We're on point with this. And thank you so much. I will end the recording now and we'll get on with the day.